Do you remember Mohg's cutscene just before his boss fight in Elden Ring? And did you ever appreciate just how creepy and bizarre it makes Mohg out to be? It begins with a shot of Miquella's cocoon, and Miquella's hand kind of flops out of a crack that runs vertically down its center, and then blood starts dripping down his arm and pools into a puddle on the floor. And then Mohg himself kind of emerges from this puddle because you, the player, have disturbed his slumber inside of Miquella's cocoon, where he is also currently residing. But before he does deal with you, he turns his attention momentarily to Miquella, still unconscious inside of his cocoon. And he says something in a very soft and soothing voice. He says, "Oh dearest Miquella, you must abide alone a while." And he says this to Miquella with the tone of one who is speaking to a lover who is lying in bed. And it's almost to suggest that the two were lying in bed together, cuddling and doing whatever it is that lovers do. Or at the very least, that's clearly how Mohg thinks of the situation. And I just want to unpack this idea that Mohg thinks of himself as more or less lying in bed with his lover when he occupies Miquella's cocoon together with Miquella. Because that's kind of an insane attitude for Mohg to adopt. Because Miquella has been abducted by Mohg from the Halig tree, and he's sitting there unconscious inside of his cocoon. And he's completely powerless, kind of like Sleeping Beauty or something. And Mohg seems to have cracked open Miquella's cocoon. And then Mohg used his command of blood magic to transform his own body into blood, and then kind of like poured himself in his blood form into that very cocoon where he would reside together with Miquella and bathe Miquella's body. And when you, the player, enter this chamber in order to start the boss fight, you kind of like interrupt this bathing session, and you force Mohg to pour himself out of the cocoon and assume his normal form so he can fight you. And I just want to point this out in order to explain the reason why Mohg is talking to Miquella as though the two were lovers, as though the two were lying in bed together. It's because Mohg sees Miquella's cocoon as their bed. And when Mohg assumes his blood form inside of it, there's a way in which he's bringing about a union of their flesh. And it's through this union that he forms this bizarre and terrifying idea that Miquella is his royal spouse.